Hey there, welcome to the Good Stuff Podcast. I'm super excited to share Dr. Zach Howard with you. He is our new superintendent, depending on when you're watching this, but this is early April. So it was just announced that he's been selected and he has signed paperwork, I believe, to start moving forward in that endeavor. So I think he's going to be a great leader here in our community. I'm energized talking to him. I was lucky enough to sit in on the interview process for him, the community portion of that. So I enjoyed getting to know him a little bit on this conversation, and I hope you will too. So hopefully there's some good stuff you can find in this. But just a little background, my name is Derek Schwinn, local real estate agent, business owner, and community enthusiast here in the community. I started a Facebook page a handful of years ago to work to tell the story of our community with a glass half full perspective. I've also spun that off into Good Stuff Media Company, where I offer my services in media and marketing to help strategically craft media and marketing, to tell a story, to promote the good stuff you've got going on in order to reach whatever goals you might have. As a real estate agent, I help clients promote their listings, providing media and marketing services to businesses here locally, and just telling the story of the community here through the podcast and other video and pictures. So if that's something of interest to you, stick around. Until then, here's the episode. Hey guys, welcome. Today I have the pleasure, like I said, of speaking with Dr. Zach Howard. So, Doctor, thanks for being here.
My pleasure, Derek. I appreciate the opportunity to come in and chat with you.
So, are you making the rounds? I saw you are on ABC 6. Little less formal here, hopefully.
Yeah, to be honest, the most important thing for me now is just to get around, start building relationships. Today was a great first half of the day. I've been in about half of our elementaries, and so getting to meet the staff and I always love the opportunity to interact with our students because that's why we're here. So I've been in the district a couple days, but to be honest, the news and things like that, I understand it's important. We have to represent our school district, but really I'm ready to put that behind us, and I really just want to build a relationship and start getting to work. That's right.
Mm-hmm. And so relationships is quite a big thing, and leadership and especially with the growth in our community, I believe relationships are one of the things we need to focus on. And we were just speaking about that with relationships between all entities, and we can only really move forward in a quality way and control the growth that a lot of people talk about with those relationships. I'm glad to hear that. And so some of the things we've talked about communicating in this conversation is I'll be sarcastic and say, I've heard you've got a magic wand. You can fix all of our problems.
I wish, Derek.
Yes.
We don't, and the state funding model is such that when you get down to it, there's pretty much equal parts a local share of revenue that has to be provided, the state portion, and that ends up being really close to 50-50. There's a little bit of federal funds that pass on down to local school districts, but unfortunately the state sees Marysville as a quote-unquote wealthier district. And so with that, this state anticipates that we should have a larger burden locally in creating those funds. And so that's where the need to pass a levy comes into play. And, if you look at our finances, one of the things that stands out really quick is that we spend approximately $2,000 less per pupil than the state average. And something else that I'm really proud of is the student achievement and the positive student achievement. And, Marysville is a great place to be because our kids are learning at a high level. They have great opportunities available to them. And, it's always important that we are efficient with the public's tax dollars. That's critical. And I like to say that at the end of the day, I really want to be a district that is high student achieving, but also very good stewards of the fiscal dollars. And so in a perfect world, we wouldn't have to spend as much as other districts because that means we're being more efficient with our public taxpayers' dollars. And that's great. And obviously as a superintendent, I'm always going to pledge to try to be that person. I know our treasurer's office has recently won the state auditor award. So it's important to be transparent and where we are with funding. But the reality is that we have a funding issue. It's not an expenditure issue, and I think you can see that in the cost per pupil, that funding that we have. Back to your question, I really wish we had a magic wand to wave, but we don't. I'm excited to be coming in and leading Marysville School District, but I do not have that magic wand. There's not a superintendent out there.
Not that simple.
It's not. We really need to pass a levy in order to bring in a local share funding.
So speaking more to the simplicity of that, to me, the student, the cost per student being less. In addition to that, I'm not always perfect in my facts, but my understanding is, like, when board president Bill Keck came in and spoke, and I've heard it many other times, his numbers were, we are in the top 17% of performers,
Yes.
school districts, but our tax burden, I can't remember off the top of my head, it's either 87% or 97% lowest burden, speaking
Right.
to the burden of taxes. And I've heard that conversation a lot in the community of improving some of, whether it's the efficiency and stewardship of the dollars, or if it's lowering the tax burden. I just don't see the evidence that that's a reality, because we're already on the,
Right.
so like you were saying, kind of bringing that disparity a little closer from the performance, but still gonna have to
Correct.
spend a little more. We can't stay at the bottom and expect to have the performance be so well.
That would be great if we could, right? But the reality is, if you look at it, we are, I know in the county and statewide, we are among the, of the districts that have the highest class sizes per teachers. We're among the very highest in the entire state. And when you look at the general fund for every district, the vast majority of that is always spent on salary and benefits, and that's your staff. Those are your employees. Those are the people that are in
That's the
front
service.
of the. Exactly. They're the students. That's where the rubber meets the road. You want to have great teachers in front of our kids, and class size does matter, and to expect that we can continue to eliminate positions and still have this great student achievement. The reality is that's just not feasible.
For sure. Well, and so that was just looking at the list of notes, and the next one, so if we go down the two paths and get a little bit of vision here of what is, how can you speak to the next year with the passage of the levy?
Yeah, Derek. If the levy passes, the board has already pledged cuts that would not take place, things that they would like to implement, and I think that's been well shared with the community. The biggest thing is that we would not have to cut some of these programs that really make Marysville a unique place to be. I'll give you an example. Last Friday, I attended Mamma Mia with my wife, and several times I had to ask her, I said, can you believe that these are kids? The music coming from the pit, it sounded like a professional orchestra. The lighting, the stage, I know our students work on creating the sets, but the stage presence that our kids had, and that's an opportunity for kids to be champions and to be a part of their school community in ways that not every school district has that, and we're unique in that. But it's not something we can take for granted.
For sure.
And so I want to make sure that our kids still have those opportunities. And with the passage of this levy, we can do that. I will say, and I think this is important, recently it's been learned that there was a calculation error, and preschool is going to have to be absorbed by the school district.
Harold Lewis, yeah.
And the law requires us to educate those students in preschool, and of course we're going to. But that is going to it's not going to impact what we've pledged. And when I say we, the Board of Education, right, has pledged that they will bring back with the passage of this levy. And it offers stability with the passage. It doesn't get us out of the woods. We still have school funding to solve.
Well, and from a state level, just to speak to, it's not necessarily all in your control. There's
Correct.
still some unknowns, right? With some state funding, federal, all kinds of questions that.
Correct. Even with this most recent biannual budget, it's not established yet. But there are some things in there that that is sort of tightening the screws, so to speak, on local funding. So, with the passage of this levy, it's important for people to know that we're not out of the woods altogether. That is important. And with the preschool calculation error, that further complicates things. But this community has pledged that we will not go forward with the remaining cuts, that we're going to work on the pay to participate amounts. Those things that the board has pledged, all intents are that we're going to stand by our word with that. Now, if the levy passes, and quite frankly, if it doesn't, which I think we've shown that locally we need those tax dollars. But regardless, I'm going to build relationships in that first year. Derek, there's so many positive things that are going on in this school district. And the biggest thing is being a support to the buildings, being a support to the classrooms, the teaching and learning that's taking place, creating a great experience for all of our stakeholders, most importantly, our kids that are in the classrooms.
Mm-hmm. And that's been my biggest frustration is with all the conversation online, sometimes that gets lost. That's what it's really for. And everybody did it for me at one point, you and so on and so forth. So got to keep planting those trees. I heard somebody say a mark of a great civilization is one that old men plant trees they'll never see the shade of. You pass that down, and I like that visual. So
yeah, I like that too. And I can speak. I graduated in '95, and so I can speak to the education and sort of the foundation that was set here in my life. And that is one of the biggest draws for me. I want to come back and give back
so
to
that's
the next
great
generation.
thing to talk about your history and why. That's one of our talking points. Why? Not to interrupt, but
sure.
What is so special to come back for you? I got to hear it in your interview process, so we can share it with the world.
Well, growing up, I had outstanding teachers, and people that I knew cared about me, loved me. Of course, I gathered the academic foundational skills that I needed, but it was more than that to me. It was people that that taught me to love my community, that giving back to the school, being a part of something that's greater than yourself, being a part of teams. I learned that love for being a part of a sense of community here in Marysville. I had teachers and coaches that were mentors to me. In some respects, almost like father figures in some respects, right? And it was just I had people in my life that created a great experience for me. And I think in my own research, I've learned that people that come back to teach, they tend to want to come home. But even if they can't have the opportunity to come home, they're looking for an experience or a community to go in and work in that reminds them of what it was like, to grow up in their own communities. Growing up here in Marysville, I've always wanted to come home. And so now to have the opportunity to really come full circle, it's where I started my life. It's where I created the foundation. Now I have the opportunity to come back and give back to the community that gave me so much. Really, that's the draw. And Marysville is a great place to be. Where else can you have lots of places of employment and opportunities? So families, it's a great place to raise a family because you can live here, you can work here, and quite honestly, you can play here. There's a lot of opportunities here within our local community.
Boy, said it's best of both worlds. I can go 9.9 miles north of my town or my house and be in the middle of nowhere,
right?
Or about the same distance south and pretty much access to anything I'm going to need for the most part. Outside of the beach and mountains, you got it all.
It's a great place to be. Amen.
how would you like to speak to if the levy fails?
Mhm.
What is our vision without too much scare tactics?
Sure. Well, the reality is every district has to balance their budget, and we're already our expenditures per pupil is already $2,000 less than what the state average is. So that you have to make that difference up somewhere, and the only way to do that is to make cuts, and not to this isn't a scare tactic. Throughout is we have to balance the books, and we can't spend money that we don't have, and so where there are programs and things in place that if it's not required by law for a school district to offer, then we're not going to be able to offer some of those things. And it's not a scare tactic. That's just the reality of where we are. I know this is the third time trying to pass the levy, and and so the need to pass that hasn't changed, and what we're seeing from legislation and the biannual budget, it's not going to change anytime soon. And as a superintendent, I don't know any superintendent that loves to ask their local constituents for more money and higher taxes,
Hmm.
but that's the way that public schools in Ohio are funded. There is a local share of that, burden. And, you know, we're going to the voters to see, voters, what do you think that the carrying capacity needs to be here in Marysville? And if we're accustomed to, programs that are among the best in the state, FFA is an example.
Oh
Our,
yeah.
our FFA program is well known in the entire state and even the country. The opportunities that that program provides many of our kids, and Derek, something I always like to tout is I want our kids to have the opportunity to be a champion in multiple areas. That not everybody's an athlete, not everybody is great in performing arts, but maybe somebody is great with public speaking. Maybe it's with
Robotics or
robotics,
whatever.
being
Yeah.
on the debate team. I know that I had those opportunities growing up, and I think our kids are worth it. And I think that they should have that opportunity moving forward too.
Agreed. And to me, that's the biggest thing. You can say it jokingly. Who do we want to be when we grow up?
Right.
But as we move forward, what are these opportunities? And I hear things like state minimums, and what was the other one? Where if you get so far gone, the state comes in to balance your books for you.
Yeah. Fiscal emergency.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah.
Who wants that? And I get challenged with that if that is some of the, and I don't mean to call out scare taxes
Sure.
tactics, just trying to call out that these are realities. They're not just
If
things
the
being
money's
said.
not there, where is it going to come
Right.
from? Right. And we can't, you can't invent that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just to try to shift or reinforce and agree with you that who do we want to be and what do we want to build or continue to build? And I was looking at just some of the awards. Have you seen the Kappa Marquee Awards for Mamma Mia? Not to not speak to the other things you were speaking to, but
Correct.
since that was one thing you brought up, and I'm not being rude to get my phone out, but just that they, I think, nominated for 4 or 5 things in there, and that's a pretty big deal. That's the Central Ohio.
What I would say, Derek, is if you had the opportunity to attend that, then you walked away in awe. And not even joking, when I was leaving with my wife, I said, I feel like I just left a Broadway production. The quality there was so much talent. And really, I get chills even thinking about it. I was sitting there, Derek, thinking, what an honor to be able to come serve a district that has programs such as this. And I don't want to do anything other than support those kids and those endeavors. There were multiple kids on that stage or behind the curtains even, or in, being a part of the lighting, the overall production. Those are opportunities for kids to, create a career, or, that it sparked a love for the performing arts. But there are kids that were going to earn scholarships based on the opportunities that they've had available here that they wouldn't have otherwise. I'm not surprised that that theater performance and the program itself is up for these state and even I would even say national awards. And what I would say, Derek, is you show me another high school production that can come close to matching that because I've never seen it, and I've seen a lot of high school productions and in some larger districts even.
Yep.
That
I've been to some that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would think would be better. And like you were saying, it's not just that program. There's many programs.
Correct.
And that's what we want to pass along to the next generations, and or at least you and I, and hopefully plenty
Sure.
of other people out there to support those things. And so I guess for a little clarity's sake, so one of the things on the website for the levy committee, reinstating, so just to clarify, there's things that have been cut as a result of the last levy. So those contracts, when they're up at the end of this year, 24-25 school year, they are done without the passage of this levy. And that's one point of confusion I've heard. So just to try to clarify that.
Yes.
And so speaking to the next year of a failed levy, if we were unfortunate enough to get there, going back to what you were saying, there's additional cuts. Those cuts exist. We don't know. From a simplistic standpoint,
yeah, I mean, if it doesn't pass, the board's already put out on the table what would be cut, and those positions would be cut, and it would create a situation where we would have, I believe, the highest student to teacher ratio in the entire state.
I was blown away when I heard this the first time, but it makes sense. What is it? 609 school districts in the state.
Correct.
So it's not out of 3, it's out of a lot.
Correct.
Correct. So anyway, just to accentuate the importance of that.
Absolutely.
In a wildly successful, growing community, that just is so surprising to me.
Yeah, and one of the things I look forward to, Derek, is working with our county officials.
That was going to be my next question.
The local chamber of commerce, the city council. I think it's really important. Every great community has good schools, has good workforce, has good hospital. What are the things that enable a community to thrive? And obviously, good schools are a part of that. We want our kids to be prepared for whatever comes next after graduation. And I truly believe that, the health of the community stands in large part to what kind of students are you graduating and are you putting forth to create a healthy workforce.
And I think the other point of that at times gets lost is, one of the things I look at with Good Stuff Marysville and this whole idea is what is a good community? And oftentimes, especially in development conversations and housing, affordable housing, whatever you want to call that topic, and those challenges. But one of the things that comes out of that is one guy I heard say, you would think the people that wrote these zoning laws and codes and things hate their kids. And the first time I heard it, I thought, that's funny. Oh, well, that does make sense because there's not a great opportunity for them to stick around based on housing. It's a challenging standpoint, and it's been part of what has created the environment that we're in. But I hadn't thought of it from the perspective of, man, what happens when these, God forbid, the levy doesn't pass? What might that mean for my kids? Are they less likely to stick around? I want to stick around. And anyway, so just that longevity of, just kind of hit me of, we kind of want that.
Right.
If you want your kids to stick around, and I know some people don't have kids or, they're past that stage and whatever, but yeah, sorry. Just kind of hit me.
Yeah, and Marysville is unique. There's a lot of districts that are not growing. And with the birth rates across the state, they're declining. Here we're unique. This community is still growing. And that healthy growth, controlled growth is a sign of a healthy community. It's something that I don't think can be touted enough is, I've heard people say, why hasn't the community gone on the ballot sooner?
Earlier, after 17, 18 years.
Yeah, because it's been 17 years since there's been new monies allocated. And part of that I would say, having been here, but part of what I would say to that is, um, you know, no superintendent wants to ask the public for more money until it's absolutely necessary. It's part to me. It's part of being good fiscal stewards of local taxpayers' dollars. But we're where we are at this point in time, and we hope we've communicated the facts around it. But something that still can't be conveyed enough is that this community thrived for so long off of TPP, tangible personal property funds. And I think at the highest, it was like $9 million a year that the district got. Well, that was great here in Marysville because we had large corporations. And so it created a lot of funding, and it did take, the burden off of individual property owners. But
Everybody loved property tax at that point.
that's right. And but what I would say is, our state legislators, they've got a job to do as well. But the school funding model, we don't get to control that. The state controls that, public education school funding model, and it's up to us to live within that.
And one thing, part of my goal in this is to help get you out there and at least express my faith in you and hopefully convey that to others. And one of the things in the interview process I heard you say was a push, or whatever words you would prefer to use, in making schools competitive again. And I think that kind of speaks to, obviously, you can only use what dollars you have,
Right.
but that initiative and that intentionality of that, I think that is something that I haven't really felt was a
Mm-hmm.
point of concern,
Right.
not even just here, but culturally. It's not like you've heard public schools saying, let's be competitive. And I think that's a huge thing to communicate, that what's that look like, and even just the intent.
Absolutely. And, when we have our students graduate from Marysville, I want to have their deck stacked in their favor, right? And that's my goal, is to create the best outcome possible for our students. And so whatever comes next, whether it's military enlistment, whether it's college, or whether it's entry right in to the workforce, we're blessed that we have Ohio High Point, that the trades are so important, and we're certainly blessed that we have the early college, high school, and the opportunity to earn some trade skills there. Partnerships with businesses, those are all important things. And several years ago, there was less competition, and now we don't have a captive audience anymore. There are more charter schools there. And so as a public school superintendent, my goal is to make Marysville High School graduates the very best across the state. I mean, that's the goal. And part of that is how well do our kids perform on state assessments? Now, I will tell you the most important thing is relationships, and behind either not just numbers, those are kids sitting there taking those tests. And that comes first, right? But at the end of the day, we also want to make sure that we're doing more than enough, and that we're competitive across the state. And I think, Diane Allen has done a great job from a student achievement standpoint. Fantastic job, and it's been very innovative. And our kids certainly have wonderful opportunities available to them. And I think that the district has shown through their work that our kids are competitive, and we want to keep it that way.
Top 17% performance. Yeah, it's making schools competitive, and with charter schools. And I think, just to clarify and add context, that's part of why state funding and the budgets have changed, is because people want options and the push for all of that and whatever that looks like.
Correct. And if we're not doing a good job providing education, which I think Marysville has shown that they do, but that's a challenge for a local school district, because the state legislators have allowed the local tax dollars to follow the student to go elsewhere. And so there are districts that are being hamstrung by that too, in that those local tax dollars are going to help fund private educations. But at the end of the day, I'm a competitive person, and I want our students to stack up against anybody's. And so if we do a good job educating our students, that problem takes care of itself.
I like it. So another thing I wanted to pull up here was from your interview process. I think at the end of your portion, I don't want to call it a speech,
Sure.
whatever you want to call it. My pledge to the community. I took a picture of it and shared it, so I assumed that was all right. If you were putting it public there, I assumed that was okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just I think kind of not specifically to the next year. What is the school? But as helping introduce you to the community. I don't know if those are things you want to speak to, or but what maybe can people expect from you? I can definitely say it seems like when you say relationships are important, you spoke a lot of that there on the interview process, but you've already, I got my hair cut and I said, yeah, I'm going to go talk to the new superintendent. Oh yeah, he was in here already, and I've heard many stories of you uptown connecting with people. And like you said, you were already at the schools. And so what are those kind of things that you enjoy doing?
Thank you for asking that question. And I did share with the Board of Education the hiring process and community forum for folks that were there. And I'll tell you, Derek, I think it's important to tout this pledge to the community because I think we all need to be held accountable. And so I would expect that our staff holds me accountable, that community holds me accountable, parents of our students, non-parents. At the end of the day, as a school superintendent, I need to be responsive to the needs of our entire community. And so, getting ahead of this and saying, hey, these are some of the things that I promised to you that I would bring as your superintendent. And first and foremost is it's always going to be about the kids. That's why we're here. So we want to do the very best we can to prepare them for what comes next. And so when decisions are made, we're going to be student-centered in regards to that. The other thing is, I'm going to be engaging. And it's one thing just to be seen at community events, but, I really want to interact with the community. It doesn't mean that we're going to always agree, but Derek, I promise you, if somebody comes up to me and gives me some input or says, I think we ought to be doing this, I promise you I'll always listen. I can't guarantee that I'll always heed the advice, right? But I'm not going to think any differently about you with what you share with me. At the end of the day, I'm still going to love you. I'm still going to do the best I can to represent, along with our Board of Education, all of our constituents and stakeholders. The other thing is, I know that Marysville is a very proud district and I know that from growing up here.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of proud traditions and values that make Marysville unique. I'm not coming in to change any of that. I'm going to uphold that and embrace it. The other thing is, I acknowledge that we already have a fantastic staff. Getting in and out of the building so far, I know that they love our kids. And so I've been really invigorated by going in there and witnessing that and really reinforcing what I always knew. But I'm going to support our staff, and still I'm going to make decisions that are in the best interest of kids. But at the end of the day, the teaching and learning that takes place in classrooms are important, and I'm going to always support that. The other thing, Derek, is my wife and I were moving to the community, and so excited about that opportunity to do that. And I want to be a community member as much as I want to be superintendent. And so
not to interrupt, I was trying to find a segue into, I think the other thing too that I look forward to, just in general of watching the future. I think it's easy to say you're superintendent, leader of the schools. But I think also there's a large role to play, and I'm not putting words in your mouth or saying what you should do, but I view those positions, whatever they are within the community, that the aggregate of that are the community leaders that help craft vision for the future of a community. And so you saying community member is just as important as, being a leader of the community, and you obviously need to be a member of it to do it.
The other thing I'll say there is, I put my pants on the same way as everybody else. Right. And I've always felt comfortable talking to, if it's stopping at the gas station, and buying a coffee, before I leave, I'm comfortable talking to that person as I am the mayor. of a community or city manager. So, it's not lost on me that as a school district, we represent all of our stakeholders, no matter what, we represent them. And so the decisions that we make need to be responsive to the needs of our community. And so it's important to become a community member and be out and visible, not just at school events, but community functions too.
Mm-hmm. And you said you've got your dog Rosie that you bring along with you and help encourage that. And
That's right.
right. Yeah.
So when you become an empty nester, Derek, and that's where my wife and I are, we had a blended family. And so ages, I always have to start the youngest. So we've got a 20-year-old, 21, 22, and 23. And so, we spent a lot of busy evenings during their teenage years, as you do as a parent, driving them to and from. But we're kind of in a great spot, my wife and I. We're empty nesters now, and so it's kind of it's of course it's a blessing when you get all 6 of us under one roof again.
I'm sure.
But we're embracing this empty nester
Space.
thing and space, and being able to try and learn new things about one another, and also just find new hobbies, things that we maybe wanted to pick up on. But what do you do when you become an empty nester? You buy a new dog. So we have a golden retriever named Rosie, and something that we wanted to have the option of doing is we had her credentialed as a therapy dog. So occasionally I'll take her into the elementary schools with me, or God forbid, if something tragic happened, people love animals, and it helps bring a sense of calm to them often. And so we wanted Rosie to be credentialed for that. And so something that I've done in Mount Gilead is I'll bring Rosie into school with me, and the kids just love her. So
Yep.
yeah, you might
hard to
see
go wrong
Rosie
there.
around in Marysville.
All right. Well, I think we've covered everything there is to cover for now. Hopefully this was some good stuff. You've gotten some quality information out of this. Hopefully you'll see Mr. Dr. Howard out and about, and maybe Rosie if you're lucky to see the dog. Hopefully that grows.
My wife's pretty cool too. Her name's
yes,
Elizabeth.
Yes, say that. Yes. So I heard she's a dancer, so maybe we'll see her in here at the dance studio, my wife's dance studio where we're currently sitting.
Yes.
But so yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that. If you found some good stuff, comment somewhere to let us know what you'd like. If there's anything you want to see moving forward, comment there. If I can get you to come and sit next to me and talk about the good stuff you've got going on, I'd love to have you. Best way to stay connected is to subscribe to the newsletter. I'll link that down below. Take care.
Thank you, Derek.